I never imagined how heavy silence could be. For 50 years, Harold filled this house with his voice, his laughter, even the way he cleared his throat when he was about to say something important. Now, the rooms echo with nothing but the ticking of the clock on the wall. Every tick feels like a reminder that time is moving forward without him, and I am left behind to carry the weight of his absence. I still set 2 cups on the table in the morning, out of habit. I still glance at his chair when I hear a creak in the floorboards, expecting him to be there with his newspaper. Grief is a strange thing, it makes you forget for a moment, then punishes you when you remember. After the funeral, Harold's children, Victor and Elaine, insisted on moving in. They said it was to help me, to keep me company, to make sure I wasn't alone. At first, I wanted to believe them. I wanted to think they cared. But it didn't take long to see the truth. They didn't come with kindness in their hearts. They came with greed. They whispered in corners when they thought I couldn't hear. They rifled through Harold's desk drawers, his files, his papers. They spoke of money more than they spoke of their father. And then one night, I heard them clearly. "She doesn't even know what's in the policy," Victor muttered. Elaine's voice was sharp, impatient. "She's old. Frail. We just need her to sign the papers. Once that's done, we'll be set." I sat in the dark, my hands trembling. Harold had worked his whole life to make sure I would be safe when he was gone. That life insurance policy was his final gift to me, his way of protecting me. And now, his own children wanted to take it away. From that night on, I watched them carefully. They began leaving papers on the table, sliding pens toward me, urging me to sign. "Just household matters," they said. "Nothing important." I smiled, nodded, pretended to be confused. But I didn't sign a thing. I may be grieving, but I am not blind. At night, when the house was quiet, I sat by Harold's chair with our wedding photo in my hands. I whispered to him, "You always said I was stronger than I believed. I'll prove you right." And so I began to plan. I reached out to an old friend, a lawyer Harold had trusted for years. With his help, I secured the policy in my name alone, making sure no one could touch it without my consent. I also updated my will, leaving nothing to Victor and Elaine. Instead, I left everything to the charity Harold loved so dearly, the one he volunteered at every Sunday. It felt right. It felt like something he would have wanted. The confrontation came sooner than I expected. One morning, Victor stormed into the kitchen and slammed a stack of papers onto the table. "Sign it, Margaret. Stop dragging this out." Elaine's eyes gleamed with impatience. "It's what Dad would have wanted." I looked at them, and for the first time since Harold's death, I felt something stronger than grief. I felt resolve. "Your father wanted me cared for, not cheated. I know what you're trying to do. And I won't let you." They stared at me, stunned. They hadn't expected resistance from the frail widow they thought they could manipulate. But I stood tall, even with my heart aching. "This house is mine. The policy is mine. If you cannot live here with respect, then you cannot live here at all." Within a week, they were gone. They left in anger, muttering about betrayal, but I didn't care. The house was quiet again, but this time the silence felt different. Not empty, peaceful. Yet peace never comes without shadows. I knew Victor and Elaine had not lived easy lives. Harold had tried to be a good father, but their mother had poisoned them against him for years. They grew up with bitterness in their hearts, always feeling cheated, always believing they deserved more. I saw it in their eyes when they looked at Harold, and later, when they looked at me. Resentment had become their inheritance. What pained me most, though, was not their greed, it was their children. Harold's grandchildren. Innocent little ones who had no part in their parents' schemes. I saw them sometimes, when Victor or Elaine brought them by. Thin, tired, their clothes worn, their eyes carrying a sadness no child should ever know. One afternoon, after Victor had stormed out in anger, his daughter lingered in the hallway. She couldn't have been more than 10. She looked at me with wide, uncertain eyes and whispered, "Grandma, do you have any food?" My heart broke. I made her a sandwich, and she ate it as though she hadn't had a proper meal in days. I lay awake that night, torn apart inside. Harold's children had chosen their path, but the grandchildren were paying the price. They were growing up in a house filled with anger, neglect, and want. And I, though not their blood grandmother, felt the ache of their suffering as if they were my own. I began setting aside small things for them, warm clothes, food, even books Harold had loved. Whenever I could, I slipped them into their hands quietly, away from Victor and Elaine's watchful eyes. It wasn't much, but it was something. I often sat by Harold's chair and whispered, "They are suffering, Harold. Your grandchildren. And I don't know how to save them." The grief of losing him was heavy enough, but the grief of watching his legacy, his family, fall into misery was almost unbearable. I knew I couldn't change Victor and Elaine. Their hearts were hardened long ago. But maybe, just maybe, I could give the children something different. A memory of kindness. A reminder that not all love is conditional. That not all family is cruel. The silence in the house is still heavy, but now it carries more than grief. It carries a purpose. I will protect what Harold left me, but I will also do what I can for those children. Because they are his blood, his legacy, and though their parents are lost, perhaps the grandchildren can still be saved. And so, I carry on. Not just for myself, but for them. For Harold's memory. For the hope that love, even in the smallest acts, can break the cycle of bitterness and pain. It began slowly, almost timidly. After Victor and Elaine left the house in anger, their children still found their way back to me. At first, it was under the guise of short visits, an afternoon here, a weekend there. They would knock on my door with hesitant smiles, clutching small bags of clothes, and ask, "Grandma, can we stay for a little while?" I never turned them away. How could I? The house that had once been so unbearably quiet now filled with the sound of laughter, footsteps, and the soft murmur of children's voices. They curled up on the couch beside me, eager to hear stories about Harold, the grandfather they barely knew. I told them about his fishing trips, his terrible singing voice, the way he always burned the toast but insisted it was just the way he liked it. Their eyes lit up with wonder, as though they were discovering a piece of him through me. The more time they spent here, the more I saw the truth of their lives with Victor and Elaine. They spoke of nights when the cupboards were bare, of arguments that rattled the walls, of mornings when they dreaded school because their clothes were too small or too worn. They didn't complain with bitterness, they spoke with the quiet resignation of children who had learned too soon that life could be cruel. One evening, as I tucked Elaine's youngest into bed, he looked up at me with wide, tearful eyes and whispered, "Grandma, can we live here with you? Please." His words pierced me deeper than any grief I had known. I wanted to say yes immediately, to promise him safety forever, but I knew the storm it would cause with Victor and Elaine. Still, the children kept asking, their voices soft but insistent. They wanted safety. They wanted love. They wanted me. I began to prepare quietly, just as I had with Harold's policy. I spoke again with my lawyer friend, asking what could be done. He told me that if the children's living conditions were as bad as they described, there might be a way for me to take them in legally. It would not be easy, but it was possible. The children's visits grew longer. Weekends turned into weeks, and weeks into months. They began to call this house home without even realizing it. They laughed more here. They slept soundly. They ate without fear of being scolded for taking too much. They began to blossom, like flowers finally given sunlight after years in the shade. Victor and Elaine noticed, of course. They accused me of turning their children against them, of poisoning their minds. But I didn't need to defend myself. The children's own voices spoke louder than mine ever could. They told their parents they wanted to stay with me. They begged not to be taken back. It broke my heart to see the rift widen, but I could not ignore the truth. Victor and Elaine had chosen their path, but their children deserved better. They deserved love, stability, and a chance to grow without fear. Eventually, with the help of my lawyer friend and the testimony of the children themselves, arrangements were made. Custody was granted to me. The day it became official, the children ran through the house with joy, their laughter echoing through the rooms that had once been so silent. Now, the house is alive again. I wake to the sound of little feet running down the hallway, to the smell of toast that I sometimes burn just the way Harold used to. I hear giggles at the dinner table, see sleepy smiles at bedtime, and feel small hands slip into mine when we walk through the garden. I am old, and my body aches more than it once did, but my heart feels young again. These children have given me purpose, and in return, I have given them a home. Together, we are healing. Together, we are breaking the cycle of bitterness and pain. At night, I still sit by Harold's chair with our wedding photo in my hands. But now, I whisper something new. They are here with me now, love. They are safe. And I'll keep them safe, for you. The silence that once haunted me has been replaced by the sound of life, of love, of family. My grief remains, but it is softened by laughter, by hope, by the knowledge that Harold's legacy lives on, not in bitterness, but in the joy of his grandchildren who now call me home. Thank you for listening to this story to this far. Please subscribe to our channel and share your thoughts in the comment section.